Sukkah, Perek Beis, Mishnah Gimel. Ha'iseh sukkah b'reishu agolo, someone who makes their sukkah on the top of a wagon, oy b'reish hasfina, or on the top, the deck of a boat. Kashera. The sukkah is a sukkah kashera. Explains the Bartanura, particularly regarding the boat. As long as the sukkah, which is on the boat, could withstand a normal wind on dry land, even though, of course, on the high seas the winds may be much stronger, as long as it could remain standing in a wind by Yabosha, dry land, then that sukkah would be considered a dira for sukkahs. The argola on the wagon, even though it is movable, the wagon, not necessarily fixed, but that's the normal way of building on top of a wagon, it would be kosher. Va'oilin lo b'yomtiv. One could go into that wagon, one could go into the boat on Yom Tov, compared with the next part of the Mishnah. Barosha ilon, someone made their sukkah on the top of a tree. Oi al gabi gomo, or on the top of a camel, built their sukkah with their schach on the top of a camel. That's still kashera. The sukkah is kashera. However, ein oilin lo b'yom tov. One cannot, on Yom Tov, climb the tree to get into the sukkah, or indeed go in on top of the camel and sit on that sukkah. Explains the Bartanura that it's a gezerah midrabanon not to climb a tree or ride, utilize an animal, because one's scared. A gezerah, one may break off a twig as one's climbing, one may want to break off a twig, or one may, if one's riding on an animal, want again break off a twig, perhaps to lead the animal, to strike the animal, and therefore as a gezerah one is not allowed on Yom Tov to go into this sukkah which is on a tree or on a camel. However, on Chol HaMoed, of course, one could enter this sukkah. Continues the Mishnah. Shtayim be'ilon va'achas bidei Adam. This sukkah is constructed in a tree. Two of the walls are based on the tree itself. The third wall is actually sitting on a construction built from the ground upwards. The wall is sitting on that construction, not on the tree. So, shtayim ba'ilon va'achas bidei Adam. One of those walls is resting on a construction from the ground. Oy shtayim bidei Adam. Even if one had, for example, two walls, they were resting on a construction from the ground, built from the ground. Va'achas be'ilon. One of them, the third wall, is resting on the tree itself. Kashera. It's a kosher sukkah, but again, ein oilin lo b'yom tov. One cannot go on Chol HaMoed, of course one could enter this sukkah, but not on Yom Tov itself, and as we'll see at the end of the Mishnah, because without the tree, this sukkah would collapse, and therefore that is considered utilizing a tree on Yom Tov, which is forbidden. One cannot climb a tree, and that would be considered the same thing. However, sholosh bidei Adam, this sukkah had 4 walls. 3 of them the walls were resting, and the floor as well, resting on 3 constructions made on the ground. The 3 walls are resting on the construction from the ground. The 4th, ba'achas be'ilon, one of those walls is resting on the tree itself. So it's quite high up. In such a case, kashera, the sukkah again would be kosher, but oilin lo b'yom tov, you could even enter that sukkah on Yom Tov. As we explained, and here is the general rule, ze haklal, this is the general rule, kol shenital ilon. In any example where if the tree was removed, yochola lamud bifnei atzmo, this sukkah would still remain and not collapse, as in fact that 3rd case where 3 of the walls are based on a construction from the ground, and it's just the 4th wall which is based leaning on the ground, on the tree. In that case, kashera va'oilin lo b'yom tov, one can enter this sukkah on Yom Tov, because that is not considered utilizing and climbing into a tree. That concludes the Mishnah.